Hi, I'm Dr. Ben Newman. I study coronaviruses as my job. So let's talk coronavirus. Next question is from John. Hello, John. Yeah, hope you're doing well. Let's see. I'm asking this because an influential person in Texarkana told me that they are, quote, so over wearing a mask. Yeah, I know. Yeah. And yesterday expressed skepticism about the relative strength of respiratory transmission as compared to fomite transmission. Okay, and so fomite transmission means surface transmission. You cough on a surface, it sits on the surface, and then from there, somehow, probably by rubbing eyes or nose or mouth, gets into the body of another person. All right. So, what's the best quantified data at this time on the risk of infection by through the air versus from a surface? And is it inferred or directly measured? These are good questions. Very good questions. And if inferred, should that make our confidence any less for what is likely to be true? Yeah. No. We have to infer a lot of things in science, and a lot of them are really good inferences. You want, if you're inferring something, you want there to be a lot of data behind it, and to be fairly confident. And fortunately, we can in this case. So, just from a phenomenological or whatever, just from a very basic perspective, from what I can find on the WHO's website and from what I can see in the literature, there is still not a confirmed documented case that where we think that surface transmission was the most likely or almost certain route of transmission. Partly because it's very difficult, like we've said in a lot of these, to tell afterward. Also partly because we think it's probably coming in by a different means. Now, there are many cases that seem as though they could not have been transmitted by fomites, by surface contamination. And so some of these would include the very early Amboy Gardens one, which is still kind of a mystery how one person managed to infect everybody below and above him inside of a very fancy hotel in Hong Kong. But there have also been outbreaks in restaurants. There's a very famous one, and you use your own fork and your own plate in those restaurants. There isn't any record, and they even have some of this on video, I think, of everyone touching a common surface and then getting it that way. It seems to have directly gone through the air from one person to another one. Yeah. Same thing with all the bars and parties and weddings. I haven't seen any evidence that it was on a surface yet. So we've got no evidence versus a lot of evidence for basically airborne transmission, respiratory transmission. And so that's at the basic level. Now, where you find support for the idea of fomite transmission are in some studies that are mathematical. They are trying to go back using assumptions that they think are about as close to right as you can get, but are always going to be wrong either subtly or dramatically, and you find out later. Yeah. And so there is a study, actually from 2017, before the new outbreak, that looked at a 2003 outbreak and concluded that it did some modeling. This was a big outbreak in a hospital, and they decided that it definitely could have been airborne. That would have explained everything. It could have been a mix of like close contact and a little bit of surface. Yeah. It wasn't just based on surface contamination. They were able to rule that one out. But the strongest statement in that paper is that we aren't certain that fomites played a non-negligible role in transmission. Yeah, or that they may have played a non-negligible. So it may be greater than zero, the amount of surface transmission. Right now, we don't really have documented evidence that surface transmission is greater than zero. It seems like a thing that could happen, that has the capacity to happen, but usually doesn't happen because of the way we live our lives. I mean, we normally sit up, we're up in the air, we walk around with our heads up here and our feet down there, and the head has the openings. This is where the virus can get in. And so just because of the way we're built and the fact that we tend to be upright creatures in general makes it real difficult to, substantiate a surface transmission. So I don't think there's a way to absolutely rule it out, and you can definitely recover live virus after it has been deposited onto a hard surface for a certain amount of time. There were a bunch of studies looking at that early in the outbreak. But you can do experiments and definitively show that the virus is able to transmit through the air from animal to animal. We haven't got, and I don't know, animals wouldn't do the same things. Animals, like lab animals, eat stuff. They're not necessarily rubbing their eyes or, picking their nose or whatever. Yeah, I have no idea what primates do, actually, but they might. Yeah, but lab mice just aren't like that. So, yeah, there isn't a good way to do that experiment. So, based on this, the only place where there's data, I think you have to be guided by the data, and the data is all pointed toward airborne transmission. That's annoying. That's very annoying because, masks, these little guys are not fun at all. And every once in a while, I forget, and then I take a step or two out of the office or out of the house, and I have to say, whoa, get back in there, get your mask, put it on, and that's like a mental burden that we're all dealing with, and it's unpleasant but necessary. So I get why a person might be over it, just in the sense of this is tiring and I would like something to change. But right now the science is pointing toward masks as our first, last, best line of defense against SARS-CoV-2. So until we get something better to go with the masks, it's got to be masks. And until we start testing every single person, it's got to be masks. That's the way. That's the price of having a somewhat normal life, even though it's not completely normal. So that's unfortunate, but that's where the science is now. And you ask a lot of really good questions there, some of which have only been answered in theory and are very difficult to answer experimentally. But being able to ask those shows you're thinking along the right lines. You're thinking like a scientist, and that's the best anybody can do in terms of problem solving. That's what science is good for. Solving problems. COVID is a problem. These are the solutions. You may not like them, but they are the solutions. Oh well. Thanks very much. This has been Ask Dr. Ben.